Old School is back. More importantly, the man, the myth. He's become a bit of a myth. He is a legend. It's Dave, my good friend Dave from YouTube channel Dave's Game Room. How are you doing, mate? Are you better?
I'm most of the way there. I had that dodgy, horrible C virus that's been going around for the last few years, but it's good to be back.
We're all glad you're back, mate. Everyone's been asking about you. And what a great place to start this adventure. Donkey Kong Country. I'm going to be playing. Dave's watching, guys. Mate, you've obviously played the SNES version. Have you ever played this version?
I haven't, actually. I'm going to be interested to see how the GB colour version of this game turned out, actually.
Yeah, I've never played this before, so I just wanted to feature this, guys, because... Here we go. Yeah, this... Okay, straight off the bat, Dave, this feels alright.
It also reminds me of Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy, which I had and played extensively back in the day. It sounds exactly
what's that
like it. Donkey Kong Land, it's almost like a port of Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy, and it's awesome. It's a really, really good game. Just the music alone reminds me of it, because it sounds identical to Donkey Kong Land.
Sure. Now, the first thing I've noticed here, and you've probably already noticed, Dave, is Diddy isn't, like, tagging behind me.
Exactly
like
the
you
same
get in the SNES.
As Donkey Kong Land. The same thing happens on that too. You don't have both characters on screen. That must be a Game Boy Color limitation, I would imagine.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I wonder that when I get to one of the animals that you ride, I think it's the rhino, isn't it, in this stage?
Yeah,
I wonder if you'll actually ride him.
I think
that sounds
you
really
do.
Dodgy.
I think you do, from what I can remember. If this is the same as Donkey Kong Land, then you will. Oh, that was a cheap shot.
Yeah. Oh, man. it looks decent, this. I liked the Game Boy Color, I gotta say. I thought it was a cool little console.
I did to a point, but the screen, whilst it was a colour screen, was incredibly dark on a Game Boy Color.
True.
You had to get it in,
very true.
In exactly the right light to be able to see what the hell you were doing.
Oh, I'm sucking at this. Yeah, I totally agree. It was an issue with Game Boys... the original Game Boy, obviously, as well. You have to be in that perfect light, or you had one of those dodgy add-ons that you could buy. That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh, so dodgy.
And they still didn't fix it for the Game Boy Advance, because the original Game Boy Advance was dreadful. What?
That's right.
My
God.
Where's he gone? Okay, that is a limitation of the GBC.
I did wonder, mate, if it was going to handle the Diddy or Donkey Kong sprite riding it.
That's strange. Is this definitely an official release and not some dodgy bootleg of Donkey Kong Country?
I hope it is.
It just seems weird that you wouldn't have the main character. You've now just got the rhino.
Yeah, I agree. It's it plays fantastically well, though, mate. This is it's buttery smooth to play.
Yeah, as I say, it looks good, and it's reminded me just completely of Donkey Kong Land, so it's interesting that they released this on the
need
colour.
to look at that, because I never even heard of that game before now.
Donkey Kong Land, I'm surprised. I think that came out in around about 95, and it was on a yellow cartridge on the Game Boy, because I had it and loved it.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out, mate.
For definite. Because you'll see what I mean. This is very similar to Donkey Kong Land, almost identical to it, in fact. But obviously, Donkey Kong Land only came out on the original Game Boy.
Okay, yeah, so it's the monochrome graphics.
Yeah, from what I can remember. I can't remember if you plugged it into a Game Boy Color, if it did anything with the colours, because some games did.
What I will say about this as well is the soundtrack is fantastic. Very faithful to the SNES version so far. The music's exactly the same. Obviously, doesn't sound as good. It's not a 16-bit powerhouse, which the SNES was at the time.
But it's good enough. It's close enough. You can tell, unmistakably, this is Donkey Kong Country's soundtrack.
Big chunky sprites.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks really good. Obviously, you've got, as well, colour palette limitations again compared to the SNES.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't... I was going to say it looks a bit ropey as I jump on this rope, but it doesn't look ropey at all. I would have loved this back in the day. Did you own the Game Boy Color, mate?
I didn't know. A friend of mine did. I didn't actually ever own the colour.
Same. I didn't. My brother did. And I always say this, guys. I give the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, a bit of a hard time on this old school series at times, but I actually do think it was a cool console. It just, I don't know, that monochrome screen and the difficulty, you couldn't just sit in bed and play it in the dark.
No, you couldn't.
Like,
I'm
forget
with you.
that annoyed the hell out of me.
Yeah, the Game Boy, as much as I liked it, because essentially we had a portable NES in our hands, I'm with you. The screen, especially if you go back and try and play a Game Boy now, the screen is so bad because that's the technology that we had in 1989.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Same with, remember the Game Gear? Colour screen, everyone went mad about it. The same for the Atari Lynx.
That's right.
They were still really bad screens. That's what people forget.
Yeah, the handheld market was obviously dominated by Nintendo. It has been forever.
Yeah.
There hasn't been... No, I lie. I was going to say there hasn't been a handheld console that has blown me away or, like, I've been super, super, like, impressed with. But I have to say I love the PlayStation Vita.
Yeah, I was also a fan of the PSP, and that was actually reasonably successful for Sony. But like yourself, I loved the Vita. The Vita was outstanding. It was like...
I loved the PSP as well. I didn't own a PSP, I owned the Vita. But yeah, the PSP was super cool.
The Vita was almost like having a little PS3 in your pocket. The games looked that good.
Oh, man. I used to find this game tough back in the day.
Yeah, this looks like it's strangely harder than the SNES version. I love the SNES version and could breeze through a lot of the early levels without even really worrying, because once you get the hang of the gameplay, this doesn't look like that.
I don't know. No, it does feel a bit different. It might be because it's harder to see stuff because of the pixelation. Obviously, we're looking at a bigger screen. This isn't actually natively being played on the Game Boy Color.
Plus, you're seeing less of the screen than you would have done on the SNES version, where the view would have been a bit wider, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course. Then I didn't consider that at all.
Yeah, because the Game Boy screen was essentially like a square, the Game Boy Color, and I'd imagine we'd have seen more of the screen on the SNES version.
Yeah, there's some pretty big borders going on, isn't there, for us right now?
Yeah, there definitely is. But, you know, it's good that we can still go back and look at these games without having to have a Game Boy Color, because I could not imagine trying to play this game now on a real Game Boy Color.
No, I didn't even know this game was a thing. I think this is definitely a game, guys. It's not a one of those sort of fan-made remakes. I think because of the music's too...
It's too good. Yeah. But then it could be a copy and paste of Donkey Kong Land's music, because this is Donkey Kong Land's soundtrack. It sounds the same. So it could be. I
can't believe that game passed me by, you know.
It's strange that when you go onto the Rhino, you don't see the character. That just seems a bit odd for Nintendo to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. Right, guys, quick edit, because this is going to annoy me. I'm going to check this and see what is up with Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Color. 2 secs, we shall be back. And we are back, and on the Mario Wiki, guys. So Dave is right. This is a real game, by the way. This is a 2000 Game Boy Color remake of the SNES game of the same name, Donkey Kong Country. It acts as a spiritual successor, Dave, to the Donkey Kong Land series of Game Boy games.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because it looks and sounds pretty much the same as Donkey Kong Land, so that's really good. But I like the fact that they actually ported the SNES version of this game across. I think that's really good.
I'm really impressed with this, I have to say. It's butter smooth to play, guys. Really is buttery smooth to play.
Yeah, it looks good and it sounds good for a Game Boy Color game as well. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with what they did. But I think they did take Donkey Kong Land and basically just put Donkey Kong Country's level layouts into it.
How do you think Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Land games stand up compared to the mighty Sonic the Hedgehog games, the mighty Super Mario games?
They're up there. They're absolutely right up there. I enjoyed Donkey Kong Country when I played it, and of course Land on the Game Boy, as much as I enjoyed, say, Mario 3 or Sonic 2. It's up there with some of the best platforming games ever for me.
I'm with you. I really like the action button in this. Like, you could do a little cartwheel or whatever. I really like that.
Ooh,
addition, if you like. Oh, this looks nice.
The underwater stage. I like it.
I wonder if they've got the music right for this. sounds like they have.
It sounds very similar. I mean, obviously on the snares, it's very atmospheric. It's amazing sounding. But this does sound good.
It is. It's the same. It's the same song. Obviously, like you just said, the snares version sounds far more atmospheric and there's more depth to the music. But
yeah.
But this is Donkey Kong Country, guys, on the Nintendo Game Boy Color. It is actually a real game. So in the SNES version, obviously, you'd see... Yeah, you would see Donkey Kong riding the swordfish, wouldn't you?
You would, yeah, absolutely.
Which sounds really dodgy. But anyway, Dave is back, guys. Mike's happy. Chorizo's happy. Look out for more old school retro football. We have got a Let's Play PES game in the pipeline. I know I keep saying that. Dave and I really want to get basically the PS3 emulator set up so we can play probably PES 2013 PS3.
Yeah.
So we've got that in the pipeline. We want to get it set up. We want it looking good. We don't want to do a half-assed job on that. So check back to the channel. Hit this video up with a big old like. We'll speak to you all soon.